me. Here we go. Getting rusty using StreamYard, a super old tool. This is Holger Mueller from Constellation Research, sharing with you my top 5 takeaways from Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services reInvent conference, which happened this week in Las Vegas. Definitely an interesting conference. Let me just share my takeaways here. There's no question about that. It had record attendance again of 65,000 attendees, bigger than last year. It's bursting out of the seams in regards of what can be done on the Las Vegas capacity from a hotel perspective. It's all over the properties of shuttle buses going between the different places and so on. It's a mega event. Hard to believe that 7 years ago, when it was my first reInvent, it was barely 6,000 people or so. So very different and shows how fast the cloud is doing, moving, and how well AWS is doing. And it effectively has become what I call the IT industry get together. People show up at reInvent even if they have nothing to do directly with the cloud or with AWS, just because so many people, pretty much everybody is there. It has eclipsed what used to be the IT industry get together, which was the VMworld, right? So AWS is taking the crown of that. Good job with that from that perspective. So to my 5 takeaways, right? Obviously, right, the big thing which everybody's been talking about, waiting about, wanting to hear about is AWS Outposts, right? Which AWS announced last year. The concession from AWS side that pure cloud cannot be everything anymore. That was a trend which was going on. Originally started with AWS Azure Stack from Microsoft side, then kept forward with Oracle with Cloud at Customer. Then with Google with GK on-premise, now developed this year in spring with Antos, and now basically with availability of Outposts. Interesting enough, not yet with S3 support, which is coming in 2020. Equally the VMware support, which is really the interesting thing to see how will customers administer these local Outpost instances through the single pane of glass coming from the AWS side or from the trusted old probably well-used internally VMware side. So really interesting thing to watch in 2020. But for now, congrats to AWS to ship to the date. We'll see what can be done. And typical AWS fashion, changing the game, right? That's what they like to do, and that's what they often do, basically by creating AWS local zones. The capability of using Outposts and building like a mini data center, not an official region, not with all the HA stuff, not with all the redundancy, closer to customers, right? Andy Jassy even went to that point saying that local zones might replace the need for Outposts on premise. We shall see that, right? But very smart from AWS to basically insert another tier, right? It was always a public cloud and the on-premise data center. Now there's local zones in the middle, and the use case shows how important, relevant that is. The first local zone is going to be in LA, a region which is far away from AWS data centers. Oregon is the closest one. That's not good latency for anybody in gaming or video development, film editing and so on in LA. So the local zone is going to be interesting. The question is going to be, for me, what qualities will a local zone have? Or full region can't be, of course, the same. But smart move of recapitalizing on the things which AWS had available with Outposts. Second takeaway is on wavelength. Also interesting enough from that space, wavelength is the ability of the partnership that AWS has signed up with Verizon in bringing AWS gear, not Outposts, but specified gear into the Verizon data centers for the 5G rollout. 5G requires a different architecture, how to run applications, next generation's applications, and you have to bring logic and code assets closer to the data. This allows that. It's a very nice comfort factor and capability for AWS customers that there's an early partnership there between AWS and Verizon for this, which gives you the certainty that whatever I have to do from architecture for my 5G applications, no matter where they are in real-time driving, gaming, whatever it might be, I have some space in the Verizon data center, which is in the hundreds. I got that question answer out, not a specific number, from the Verizon CIO, Tammy, forgot the last name, who was there in the Q&A. Sorry, Tammy, if you watch this. I have to look up the name. So also on land grab, because every data center has limited data space. Of course, AWS competitors in Seattle and in Mountain View will not sleep at this, but hey, if space is taken already by AWS machines, there's going to be less room for these other machines. So a strategic move by AWS, no question about that. Third takeaway, SageMaker, of course, right? Very important from AWS perspective, SageMaker, the AI tool for the developers. Interesting that the releases, the capabilities which are coming are getting beefier, more larger, not these single, tiny, granular services. So that's an interesting trend to see on AWS side, but I think more beefier, more powerful products are generally good. Concern we'll get later to, coming to the fourth takeaway, which is Aqua. Good to see lots of announcements around Redshift, which is one of the venerable old AWS services since 2013. The by value name database, basically. That's what Redshift is. Getting new life into it, massive new investment, has a new leadership. I believe it's Andy Gutmann, definitely Gutmann. Not sure if it's Andy. Apologies, something is wrong with my names here today. Too much AWS this week. I blame it on them. And good to see the innovation on that part. And Aqua is going to make it really interesting to run data lakes together with named value pair databases like Redshift together. So important thing which has not been solved to the satisfaction of the enterprise building next generation applications. I'm sure my colleague Doug Henshin is going to be all over that doing and looking at this. Fourth one, interesting enough, very quiet from a developer perspective, right? Even Werner Vogel's keynote on Thursday talked not about DevOps, not about how to build things and so on. Talked a lot about history, was very professorial, educational, was fun to watch, but nothing about this. And it was left to Andy Jassy. So the constant grabbing from Jassy from Werner's keynote. Werner had no product announcements. Was an interesting side observation for the longitudinal aspects there. But Code Guru is really interesting because it uses and changes with machine learning capabilities the way our code can be written, constantly analyzed, constantly reviewed, brought up to standard, brought up to snuff. That's exactly the way how digital transformation with the power of machine learning is changing everything, including the way how code is being built. Those are the 5 takeaways. What's my point of view from the overall event? Usability issues here. So it's the usual broad push, right? People might be disappointed there was no big announcement. The notable missing thing, Amazon usually, or AWS usually has some business typical IT area there, which is coming out. There was a QuickSight to tackle the BI market. There was the virtual desktop application part offered a few years ago. There was the CTI capabilities offered another year. There was the whole file management things being managed. There was typical examples where Amazon was entrenching into existing software in other markets, and Jesse didn't make any secret out of that, saying just basically, well, that's what we do. We get into the space when we see an interesting margin. And that didn't happen this year, or I missed it. If you know what it was this year, just let me know. So interesting to see that. Also interesting to see, and I still have to dig that out for the blog post, there was always this hockey stick where AWS would say, we announced more, we announced more. I didn't get to ask my standard question to Andy Jassy in the analyst Q&A, which is AWS too complex? He already knows the question is coming. And the way how to reduce the complexity is with better bundling and beefier products. Now, I mentioned that already on the SageMaker side, the products are getting beefier, and that allows customers to build more on certain products versions. It's important for repeatability, because the biggest problem, the biggest challenge for a CXO building on any cloud out there, I need to be successful with my team, with my resource, with my know-how. And I don't want to leave it to chance that I might not have the smartest architect, or they make a dumb decision and so on. And this is why the repeatability, which comes from aggregation of products, is so important. And it's good to see that AWS is moving in that direction. So for me, I'm not in any way disappointed the hockey stick here was coming on. For me, it's AWS learning and making the fabulous Chinese menu, which AWS is, a little bit better and a little bit more manageable. That's success for the enterprise. On the AI side, quick step on that part. Last year I told AWS over the race is not for the developer. Yes, they catered for the developer agreement. The race is for the business user, which has some technology chops, but is not really technical in the AI side. And I didn't see and hear much from that on the SageMaker side. But hey, AWS people are smart. I'm sure they know that. That might be up for the AWS Summit, the counterpiece to reInvent, which is the AWS Summit in San Francisco, at least traditionally. Things seem to be changing. The scheduled reInvent was different too, not keynotes on Wednesday and Thursday, but Tuesday and Thursday regarding what Jesse and Vanna said. So for now, that's it. Way too long for my side, hitting the 10-minute mark here. Many thanks for the people who are watching live right now here on Periscope or on YouTube. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, follow me on Twitter at Holger Mu. Constellation Research is the outlet where I produce these things for. And all my notes are on Twitter. So everything is there, nicely summarized for all 3 days in Wakelets, which are a collection of tweets. So if you miss anything, you can see my notes from there. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and a good weekend and good decompression from all the news and announcements and exciting things which happened at reInvent 2019. Thank you.